Good evening and Jai Bhim. Today we bring to you a very important personality in the Ambedkarite movement who since his college days, in his university days has contributed so much to the Ambedkarite movement. And his name is well known throughout the Ambedkarite circle, not only in the Ambedkarite circle, but also in the academia and in the field of sociology. Professor Vivek Kumar needs no introduction at all. We fondly call him Vivek Bhau, and I think he doesn't mind us calling him Vivek Bhau for a long time because he's like our elder brother. Before I hand over the discussion to Vivek Bhau, I would like to just briefly introduce, his profile. Professor Vivek Kumar is a professor of sociology and the chairperson of the Center for the Study of Social Systems, School of Social Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, where he earned his PhD. He is also professor in charge of Dr. Ambedkar Chair in Sociology, constituted by Social Justice and Empowerment Ministry of the Government of India. He is also coordinator of a very prestigious global studies program formalized with Albert Ludwigs University and Humboldt University, Germany. Flaxo, Argentina, University of Cape Town, and like a multinational program. He's a coordinator of a very unique program that's having a multinational nature. He has taught in the Department of Sociology of the Columbia University. As the audience will know that Columbia University is so dear to us, where Baba Sahib went and got his PhD, and it's an honor for a society that our brother is teaching sociology in Columbia University. He's also as a Fulbright visiting professor. He was a Fulbright visiting professor there. He's associated as a visiting faculty in the Humboldt University, Germany. He has, besides his academic intervention, he has also contributed to making the issue of Dalits known widely throughout the world. So he has been participating in a lot of conferences. He's a very much sought after speaker in different arena, different areas. He has also represented in the Parliament of the World Religions, and also he has been he has participated in a very famous conference that was like a landmark conference in Durban, which talked about the first time it talks about the caste system in India and the intervention from the Ambedkarites. So he has also helped a lot of young people to get their PhDs, like 35 PhDs he helped to get, and 36 MPhil students he supervised. Now I will leave this professional biodata aside, and I will talk straight about his contribution. Since I know Vivek Bhau, I have always seen him very attached to the movement. He is someone who embodies what Baba Sahib Ambedkar called the people who will not just live for their stomach, but will contribute with their commitment to the society. So Vivek Bhau has always tried to push the students' communities, the activists, and one of his roles has been to educate the public through various public platforms. So he has been on the platforms of the BAM Safe, and you name it, and he was there. I reckon that there is no city in this country where Vivek Bhau has not visited or given a talk. So there was a book which Christopher Jaffrelot authored called The Silent Revolution. Vivek Bhau said, no, it's not silent revolution, it's a roaring revolution. It's a revolution that roars. And he has a very strong fascination for the study of BAMSE, DSP, but not only study, he has been the insider. He has been participating in the various conventions, he has been giving talk, he's engaging with the Karyakartas from ground level to the high echelons of the organization. So his topic today, and I think that is a very important topic today when we look at the grave situation around the socio-political, economic situation around. This topic is so relevant, not only for the Ambedkarite community, but also for India today and for the lovers of democracy today. His topic is BAMSEP to BSP and vision of Manyavar Kanshiram. He has personally met Manyavar Kanshiram many times, and he has been active in a lot of things there. So without taking much time, I know that you are very eager to listen to Vivek Bhau. So I request Vivek Bhau to please begin his presentation. Vivek Bhau.
Thank you, Mangesh, for this wonderful introduction. I don't know whether I will stand up to the mark as you have introduced me, but remembering our association when Mangesh was a right officer, and we always saw him that he will be mentoring so many, and then his house used to be always full of guests. The students used to, feed upon his money and his room. So I still used to say that no, Mangesh, you're not going to leave Delhi. But he left Delhi, and after a long time, I'm meeting him. Though I miss him, of course, in Delhi. But of course, his presence has been felt now all over the movement. So congratulations, Mangesh, on that count. And also thank for this Ambedkar Karava, running this a very innovative online program and connecting people from all over the world. I think that is only young people, young mind who can think of the use of the technology for the benefit of the community. I think they can only do. So I congratulate you on that. I also thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I will like to ask about the language, in which language I should speak. So,
Oh yeah, we have chosen the English language as a medium. So you go on, and we will then, after a few months, we are going to switch on to different vernacular media. But
okay.
today is English. So.
Oh, it is English. Okay, fine. Because actually, many of the people uh, outside actually the arena, they will like to listen. Okay, fine. So the title of the title of the talk which is chosen is BAMSEF to BSP vision of Manavar Kashiram. I think that is a very I thought that it is going to have an epochal analysis of that. So to begin with, I will like to locate this whole movement, that is BAMSEF to BSP, in a particular context. I think location of Manavar Kashiram is very important. And there can be two ways to locate. One is you can locate it distant way, a distant past, and you can also locate from a very instant view past. So if you think you can locate his movement in the distant past, you can go to two types of philosophies which existed in India. And these philosophies, Vedic philosophy and Avedic philosophy. So the Avedic people did not believe in the Atman, and they also did not believe in God. That is Avedic philosophy. And Kashiram toes the line of that particular movement, starting from Buddha, Charavak, Ajivaka, Ashoka, and then, of course, Raidas, Kabir, Chokha, Phule, Narayana Guru, and of course, Baba Saheb Ambedkar. That is the line which he traces. And in one of his books, that is Chamcha Age, he writes and he takes cognizance of Phule's movement that it was 1848 when Phule started actually taking note, or Kashiram takes note that that is a time when the revolution started. So it is somewhere 172-year-old history that we want to record. And that's where this is the distant past. But when we come to the instant past, I think we can look into Baba Saheb Ambedkar's movement. And that is, when did Baba Saheb for the first time entered in public life? And according to written document, it is 1990 when Baba Saheb submits a memorandum to South Borough Committee. That is the time when Baba Saheb Ambedkar enters into the public life. So actually, when we want to relate Kashiram's movement to the larger epoch of the movement, I think it is Baba Saheb's movement which comes very close and near. And that is where I want to start. So how to understand Baba Saheb's movement, and then actually equivalent to that we have Kashiram's movement. So we have at least 6 epochs in the making of Baba Saheb's movement. Baba Saheb movement cannot be understood as a monolithic whole. There are 6 epochs. To begin with, it is socio-religious reform movement. Then he goes on to have actually political movement. Then he has constitutional take. Then he has, of course, the education society, that is educational part. And then he comes to constitution. And last but not the least, he has religious renouncer as a movement, I will call. So 6 epochs have to be looked into. So there is a evolutionary perspective of Baba Saheb Ambedkar's movement, which has to be kept in mind. And in that, when you look into Baba Saheb Ambedkar's first memorandum, this is where I think a very intellectual exercise of Baba Saheb's comes into the fore. And that is self-representation, 1919, the self-representation. And why at all this self-representation? So Baba Saheb begins memorandum by arguing that if government is a space for harping, for trying to energize the capacity and capability of the individuals, everyone should be allowed to participate in the government. That is the beginning of his actually memorandum. And then there are 5 reasons because of which Baba Saheb want self-representation of the Dalits. The first is that he says that government is a space for harnessing capacity and the capability. That is one. So I should be allowed. So a good government is government that is not actually representing the aspirations of the people only, but it gives self-representation also. Why self-representation? I think we have to underline, and I will come to that later. The second is that for establishing democracy, that where self-representation is required, that if self-representation is not there, then a government by the people, that means will only educate one few to make laws. So some will be ruled always and some will be rulers. So this pattern should change, and then democracy will take roots. The third is basically the justice. Effective implementation of justice requires self-representation of the Dalits, because he argues and he quotes Karl Marx, 1871, Paris Commune, and he says that Marx was quite correct when he says that if a civil service is not tuned towards social change, then he will not implement the laws. And that's why Lenin actually accepted and he changed his bureaucracy. But British did not change the bureaucracy. And Baba Saheb is very categorical in saying that though India is governed by, though ruled by the British, but it is governed by the Brahmins, and therefore change is not possible. So for effective implementation of change and social justice, you need self-representation. The fourth is very important, and that reason is moral reason. And it is here he quotes Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who was trying to give a petition to the British government saying that, Indians are not represented in British bureaucracy, and therefore, dwarfing and stunting of Indian is taking place. They are not able to achieve their total manhood. Their capacity and capability are diminishing. Baba Saheb drew a straight line saying that, look, British bureaucracy is only 150 years old. And within 150 years old, you are losing your capacity and capability. What about us? You have not given us responsibility. What about 1,500 years old? We have not got anything. So there is a moral reason for self-representation. Last but not the least, Baba Saheb asked self-representation because Dalits have their own specific problems, and it is they who can harness. So these are the 5 reasons for self-representation that actually Baba Saheb had asked. Now, Having said this, let me come to the philosophical moorings which is underpinned in this, and why Baba Saheb is so forcefully arguing about the self-representation. And it is, I'm here reminded of Manusmriti. And in Manusmriti, when Baba Saheb Ambedkar is trying to analyze the Manusmriti, and he says that how Brahmins are considered as Bhudeva, the people who have actually commanding virtues. I think, and my some of the students like Arvind and others, they were trying to argue that it is here Baba Saheb was very much influenced by Aristotle's philosophy, who tries to talk about commanding virtues and obeying virtues. There are two types of people in the society. And that was brought in India, where people thought that, you know, the Brahmins, the upper caste, they are the people with commanding virtues, and the Dalits, they have to obey. And that is why a great politician like Tilak was forced to say that ye teli tamali kunbat parliament mein kya karenge jaakar, what they will do. So that's where I think, to break this ideal, typical stereotyping of the Indian society, that there are certain people who are there to govern and there are certain other who are to be ruled, Baba Saheb for the first time asked self-representation. He wanted to deconstruct, break this ideological plank on which Indian society was resurrected. And therefore, political self-representation becomes a very, very important tool for deconstructing the structure of Indian society. The second aspect of this self-representation comes when Baba Saheb Ambedkar is trying to analyze the Indian social order, the Hindu social order. Is it a egalitarian order, Hindu social order? And there again, actually, Baba Saheb is very far ahead of certain social scientists. Even people like Homo hierarchicus, the person who has written Homo hierarchicus, Louis Dumont. Louis Dumont talks about inequality in Indian society, and that they are talking about simple inequality. But Baba Saheb is way ahead, and he's talking about it's not simple inequality. It is graded inequality that we have to understand. Simple inequality is economic in nature, where people can combine together. Those who are economically unequal, they can combine and they can really dismantle the unequal order. But that is not the case here. Why people are not able to come? So it is cumulative exclusion which Dalits suffer. Economic, political, social, educational, religious, educational, and even spatial segregation exists. So this inequality, graded inequality, has to be counted before we really have to understand the political arena. And therefore, Baba Saheb argued that unless and until Dalits get self-representation in political arena, this inequality cannot be broken. Otherwise, you know, I become an IAS officer, but I will remain a lesser IAS officer. That's why J. Leninsky talked about status inconsistency, that there is a status inconsistency in the Indian society where people, because of constitution, they have gone in higher up in the secular status, but in social status, they are not acceptable. So this has to be broken, and that's why self-representation was asked. Now, if we go from this, then actually we look into that how Baba Saheb Ambedkar asked for different political powers, and after 1936, 1942, the two political parties are very much germane. So we can see that Baba Saheb Ambedkar moves from socio-religious reform movement to political movement. And then he, of course, goes to constitutional aspect. Now, it is here that you have to see that emergence of Kashiram's movement. I have looked into the text, and it says that it is by 1971 is the time when actually it was 21 years had passed, and there was actually parliamentary democracy was taking root, but there was a lot of unrest in the society. There was a lot of exploitation, suppression, discrimination among about the Dalits. Now, it is here that Kashiram comes and tries to argue that how to organize people, how to look into. And of course, he is with the group of people, is not individual. When I say Kashiram, that means I say, and I underline again and again, that Kashiram is product of a group movement, a group which was known as BAMSEF. That is actually, we have to remember. It's not that I'm trying to give only onus to one individual, but because he was a captain, therefore he will be learned. Now, having said this, if in a nutshell, if we want to understand his movement, again, there can be, one static view with 5 principles, and there is an evolutionary view of the movement. Now, I will take, 5 principles to understand his movement. The first principle, which he argues, that if you want to change the society, then you have to understand the nature of the society. Without understanding the nature of the society, you cannot change the society. So that is the first principle, and that's where he started understanding. I will come to that. Second principle is people get the leader they deserve. Why? Because in democracy, it is the people who elect the leaders. It is not that the actually leaders elect the people. It is the people who elect the leader. So it is the onus is on the leader. Don't stop cribbing that my leader is bad, because it is you who have elected the leader. It is not that he has elected you as mass. So he was very clear that stop cribbing. You have to understand. The third principle was that the societies whose social roots are weak, their politics will never be successful. So for a successful politics, you should have a very strong social roots. The fourth principle is power will be product of the struggles. Without a struggle, there will not be power. And fifth is those who oppose successfully, when succeed, will be asked to propose. So it is not only that you keep on opposing. Those who oppose successfully, when succeed, will be asked to propose. So you should have an alternative perspective for the society. So these are the 5 principles on the basis of which Kashiram started actually his movement. So Manavar actually, how did he understood the society of his time? If you see, what was the time period when he was looking his society? So he started looking from 1971, and he says that, look, it is certain that Baba Saheb already said that our society has been divided on the caste lines, and there is so much of casteism that people try to identify only on the basis of caste. That is one. Second, the important aspect was that the people who are there, their enthusiasm has been shattered. In Maharashtra, where he was working, and he says that it is here that Baba Saheb have ran 36 years of his movement. And it is here that people's enthusiasm have been shattered. And he used to give example that the enthusiasm has been shattered in such a way that they say आंबेडकरी विचारधारा चांगली आहे पर सफल होऊ शकत नाही. आंबेडकरी विचारधारा चांगली आहे पर सफल होऊ शकत नाही. The Ambedkarism as a philosophy, as an ideology is very good, but it will not succeed. That was actually his analysis of the time. The third thing which he highlighted about that time was that, look, there was lot of power with the Bahujans or with the Dalits, but that power has been shattered because the leaders, the political leaders, they have been co-opted by the certain political parties, and of course Congress, he named Congress very much. And therefore he argued that, look, the people who are supposed to lead, they have become chamchas, and that is what the crux of the Chamcha Age, his book in 1982, comes. But the problem is that the employees who got reservations and who have got the job of the reservation, they have become chamchas of chamchas. So there is basically dependency of the bureaucrats on their leaders, and the leaders are already dependent on the other leaders, and therefore we have to really change this situation. Now, having said this, he tried to understand this social order. That was one. He tried to make sense that what is happening, and we have to actually pool our resources. We have to gather these resources. That is one way that he tried to understand. That was first principle. The second principle was that you get the leader you deserve. So he started understanding the types of leader which we had, and he said that the independent Dalit leaders of Babasaheb Ambedkar's party, RPI. Now, there is actually not analysis, or there is not assertion among them. They have really dependent, and he quoted one, one yuti or one, alliance between Congress and RPI, 1971 alliance. At that time, I think there were 539 seats and actually 40 seats. So what happened? The alliance was that in Congress name, there were 539 seats, and for RPI, there was only one. But Kashiram, in his very old style that it should prick to the people, he said that, look, what happened that when the alliance in 1971 happened, Gandhi had 539 seats and Ambedkar had only one. Oh, this is no alliance. So actually, to energize people, to put anger in the people, he changed the idiom, and therefore people could galvanize. So that was another principle he tried to analyze of the leadership, what was happening. The third principle, the communities whose social roots are weak, their politics will never be successful. So he argued that how this political roots can be strengthened. And in that context, he said that it can be strengthened only by making an organization. So in 1971, on 14th of October, 1971, some people met. They said that, look, we will research and come back again. And they met again on 6th of December, 1973. And they argued that, look, now for 5 years, we will research, and then we will come to the table to understand. And that's where actually, 1981, in 1981, Kashiram had dictated, one of the books on BAMSEF. And this BAMSEF, if you see this title, this is 1981. He had dictated this because he is saying that 250 pages book should come. So this was brought out in 1981. This is and actually he says that this BAMSEF, I quote from that book, Bamsev is product of deep desire, careful thoughts, conducted experiments, and evolved concepts. These are the terms which he uses: evolved concepts, conducted experiments, careful thoughts, deep desire. Now, giving you this, that how he was actually very much oriented that a organization will strengthen the social roots of the society. Now, I will just quote at least, one-liners, that within this principle, that the community whose social roots are weak, their politics will never be successful. Under this, he made certain formulas. And what are these formulas? At least 6 or 7 formula I would like to give you, one-liners, so that actually things become clear. The first formula, the first equation which he developed was N into D into S is equal to C. N into D into S is equal to C. N, need, D, desire, and S is strength, and is equal to C, that is change. So everybody is asking change, but everybody needs change. But whether they have desire for change, whether they have strength for change, unless and until they have all the three, change will not occur. So it is through this organization, there's a need. We will definitely accumulate the strength and accumulate the desire so that people can lead to change. That was one. Second, there has to be man, mind, and money. M into M into M is equal to O, that is organization. Mind into money, man, mind into money is equal to organization. Now, this is very important. So he said that we will be, this is the historical moment that we are asking the employees to come together. So man has, which has mind. They were already there because actually they were already selected or elected with interviews. They knew the files, and they had money, regular flow of money. Therefore, this man will be there. The third thing was the self-respect movement will be run on the basis of self-help. If you take help from outside, then direction will also come from outside. So no outside direction, no outside help. It has to be self-help. The fourth, it is pay back to society. It was a moral principle. I think nowhere in no social movement I have observed such moral pressure on the individuals. I think that was a historical understanding and moment of morality, and people were shaken by the morality that you have to pay back. You have acquired this whole development because of the member of the society, and therefore you have to pay back. Then the fifth point was, you should not attempt any action unless until you have 3 steps stored in your mind. Action will lead to reaction, and that has to be equated with counteraction. So these 3 steps have to be kept in mind before any action has to be taken. Action, reaction, and counteraction. If you do not have counteraction, please don't initiate action. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. The sixth principle was, sixth formula was, or sixth equation was, have a positive agenda. And this actually still prevails in many of the organizations, that if you really want to set an agenda, or if you want to shorten a line, don't rub that line, draw a bigger line. So that is the positive agenda. Now, don't always crib, don't only criticize, create your own agenda, don't react. I think that is a very good, important point of, because Kashiram used to say negative publicity is also a publicity. So never actually, the powerful enemy, you keep on criticizing Brahmanism, Brahmins, you keep on criticizing Vedas, you keep on criticizing Smritis. But the problem is that as you criticize, they sit with you. And you have taken your platform, they come with you. without any information, they come with you and they sit just beside you. So why to remember? Let them die on their own death without actually explaining them. And then, of course, the other important aspect was creation of the pantheon. The 5 leaders actually, and Kashiram used to tell that, you know, the illiterate masses did not know this. So I used to tell them, देखो मैं पगड़ी वाला बाबा लाया, देखो मैं अचकन वाला बाबा लाया, जो मैं दाढ़ी वाला बाबा लाया, मैं टाई वाला बाबा लाया, ये बाबा हैं हमारे. और you just actually look into and how people started identifying with them. And then, of course, the 10th, of course, is very important. DA plus DT is equal to social action. दिमाग में, दिल में आग और दिमाग में ठंडक. DA, दिल में आग प्लस दिमाग में ठंडक is equal to social action. जो हमारे यूथ हैं वो उनको समझना चाहिए, दिल में आग और दिमाग में आग हो जाएगा तो एक्सीडेंट हो जाएगा. तो दिल में तो आग होनी चाहिए, दिमाग में ठंडक. You should have, you know, tranquility in the mind. Last but not the least, the organization BAMSEF was supposed to be non-political, non-religious, and non-agitational. Now, with these actually, there are many others I'm skipping, but I'm giving you these 10 equations are very important to understand that this movement was based on a scientific temper. It is not haphazard. It is not out of wants and desire of the person. Rather, it is clearly, logically, scientifically arranged order of a social movement, which is usually not actually available to us. So, you know, people come and they said, I'm launching a movement without reading the history. I think if they can read the history, they will get at least that look how a movement should be launched and before the preparation can be done. Now, Ambedkar then, after running this movement for 3 years, Manavar Kashiram running BAMSEF for 3 years, then he thought that, look, actually, now suppose our political, you know, our social roots are strong, so nobody is going to give you political power like that. Basically, you have to basically struggle for that. So now this organization, BAMSEF, was non-political, non-agitational, and non-religious organization. Therefore, he said that now we have to agitate. And therefore, he brought the 4th principle into act, that power will be product of struggles. And for a struggle, you have to have another organization, and that was DS4, Dalit Shoshit Samaj Sangharsh Samiti, and that was established on 6th of December 1981. And from that, actually, struggles and, of course, actually new type of mobilization started. And first thing was identification of the population of the exploited. And that's where he said that Thakur, Brahman, Baniya chhod, baki sab hain DS4. Thakur Brahman, you know, except Thakur Brahmins and Baniya, all are members of Dalit Shoshit Samaj Sangharsh Samiti. And that's where his very famous, you know, description of Indian society through the pen started. The cap symbolizes the Manuwadis 15% and the pen body 85%. And therefore he said that unless and until we open the cap, this Bahujan will not flow. So you have to take out the 15% Manuwadi cap, and then only this will start flowing. So it was very scientific nature of identification. And in also, you know, in his book, this is the original Chamcha Age book, actually. In that book, you know, he has given this description of the social order. If you see, this is the order, and in this actually he has 15% of the beneficiaries of the system and 85s are the sufferers of the system. For the first time, people talk about that, look, Indian society, you do not have divisions in the society, rather on the basis of very categorical characteristics, Kashiram divided the society into two. And that's where actually a other was created, a other against whom battle can be pitched. So the construction of a other, such a big other, I think was a very historical moment for this. Now, from DS4, a number of struggles were launched. I will like to just give you few examples that people say that, oh, there are no movements, oh, BSP is sitting idle, they have done their movements. Now they are in a formal stage of political party. Movements are launched at the time of the organization, when the party is getting organized. So what was the first movement which you liked? This was the cycle, the cycle rally, or you can say, the cycle journey, yatra of 3,500 kilometers. And what he named? He named Miracle of 2 feet and 2 wheels. He said that we don't have 4-wheelers, we don't have petrol, we don't have helicopters, but we have at least 2 feet and we have 2 wheels, the cycles, so we can definitely go on that. And therefore he started, and then he started mobilizing on that basis. The second program was Bareilly March, Sharab Bandi Ka Andolan. Now, Kashiram in his own style used to say, Daliton ki basti mein sharab khana, Musalmanon ki basti mein thana, और सवर्णों की बस्ती में पाठशाला. ये है डिजाइन. दलितों को शराब एक डिजाइन के तौर पर पिलाई जाती है. Dalits are fed liquor in a design, and that's why at the very corner of the Dalit Basti there is a Sharab Khana, and in Muslim Basti there is a Thana, and in Savarn Basti there is a Pathshala. So you can very well see the spaces are divided, and on that basis how exploitation takes place. Now, coming to the another program, and it's very, very important program, and speaks the volumes of the imagination of Kashiram, and this is People's Parliament. Now, the first People's Parliament took it the Boat Club, and we all know that Boat Club, from Boat Club, Kashiram used to show people that, look, that is the parliament, but you cannot enter in that parliament. But what happens in the parliament, that can be demonstrated. So he tried to demonstrate that how people used to sit, where is the treasury benches, where are the opposition, what is done in the, and what is it done in the actually this whole parliament. And then this program was shifted to every nook and corner of Indian society so that people could be energized politically. And from there, DS4 started limited political action. And in this, basically, he used to argue that limited political action, we will contest actually political party. We will have political elections. But these elections, I'm giving you only platform tickets, because you cannot enter the train, because I know you cannot go into the parliament. I'm giving you to go to the platform and look actually how trains run. So, but you will be having a training. Now, here, what is important, that he used to take help of the BAMSEF. BAMSEF used to come in a clandestine manner and he used to help. Now, then important program was Pune Pact Dhikkar Divas. That is a very important program which was started on 24th of September 1982. And it is here that he brought out the book Chamcha Age. And I want to actually read what is written on the back flap of the book. This is very important, because that is where Kashiram's introduction comes to the fore, and he writes, the author of this book, Mr. Kashiram, is not a writer, but an organizer of some standing. For past 15 years or so, he is busy in organizing oppressed and exploited. And he says that, and he has founded 4 organizations. He says this book, the backlab says that he has founded 4 organizations. BAMSEF, non-political, non-religious organization, non-agitational. Buddhist Research Center, BRC, not to mix religion with secular activity, a separate institution. Buddhist Research Center was started exclusively for religious activity. And I have also with me the first bulletin of BRC. If you see the first bulletin which came of BRC, I think it will be very interesting to see. This is BRC bulletin. And this, the date is 20th October 1988. In that, actually, he was running. That means it was very much there, basically. BRC, that is the second organization. The third organization is DS4, and fourth organization, in 1982, he says that yet unnamed step initiated it since April 82 for building a national level political party of the oppressed. So he took this and then he tried to highlight 4 types of chamchas in this. The 4 types of chamchas are scheduled castes, reluctant chamchas, scheduled tribe, initiated chamchas, the other backward caste aspiring chamchas, and the minorities are helpless chamchas. These side, and then he used to say that don't fight with the chamchas directly. Hit the hand that holds the chamcha. If you hit the hand, chamcha will fall down because chamcha doesn't act on its own. It is basically only a tool in the hand of the others. So don't fight the chamcha. Hit the hand which holds the chamcha. That was his. And then another type of actually categorization, he said that 2 types of leaders exist in the society. One is Bandar Neta, that is monkey Neta, which hop from one tree to the another. And this type of leaders are quite available when we have election period and they hop from one tree to the another, one branch to the other. The other is crab leader, Kekla Neta. Now, Kekla Neta, crab leaders have a mentality, crabs have a mentality that if you put the crabs in an open box, they will not come out of that box because they have a tendency to hold the feet of each other. So एक दूसरे के पैर को पकड़ करके खींचने की जो है वो स्थिति में रहते हैं, and therefore he says that we have these types of leaders and we should be aware. Now it is here that, friends, that he starts actually trying to galvanize people for political help. Now after that, after 3 years of working of DS4, the 5th principle comes into existence, that people who oppose and succeed will be asked to propose. And this was the proposal to propose an alternative politics that he floated Bahujan Samaj Party on 14th of April 1984. Now, if you see what was the philosophical aspect of Bahujan Samaj Party, that will be interesting. To begin with, what was the starting point? How did he legitimize Bahujan Samaj Party? That is very interesting. How did he legitimize? Because he did not take that an independent action. He legitimized through Babasaheb Ambedkar. And he quoted Babasaheb Ambedkar. Babasaheb Ambedkar on 25th of April 1948. I quote, on 25th of April 1948. on the occasion of 5th State Convention of Scheduled Caste Party, Scheduled Caste Federation. 5th convention was in Lucknow. And there Babasaheb Ambedkar said, and I quote, "Political power is the master key for all-round social development, and scheduled castes can open this actually part of their development by capturing the political power." So Kashiram tried to legitimize his action. Look, actually, you cannot say that actually he was not, he was standing on his own. He was very much taking legitimacy from Babasaheb Ambedkar. And that's where actually I'm saying that 72 years back it happened. But for Kashiram, after 36 years of Babasaheb proclamation in 1948, he captured political power. 1995, he captured political power for the first time. In 97, he captured political power second time. Third time, 2012. 2004, fourth time in 2007. 95, 97, 2002, and 2007. 4 times he captured political power. So I think I can at least congratulate the UP walas, the UP population, that they heard Babasaheb Ambedkar. They listened to Babasaheb Ambedkar that we have to capture political power, and they captured political power. Even after 36 years over. But so this was, I think, the starting point that political power. Kashiram changed the slogan that political power is the master key which can help you to capture political power, which can help you to open every lock of your success. That was the Guru Killi in Punjab. It is said that it is Guru Killi for political power. So that is one. The second aspect, theoretical, is that he gave the motto of the political party. This was social transformation and economic emancipation was the motto of the political party. Now, come to the slogans. And slogans speak again the democratic nature of the movement. They also speak the commitment to the constitutional values. How much Kashiram was committed to the constitution and constitutional value, democracy and constitutional value. Now, the first slogan is "Vote Hamara, Rashtra Tumhara, nahi chalega, nahi chalega." Your vote, our vote, and your rule no longer and no longer. I think that was something very democratic in nature. That look, I have more people, and you are ruling me. For the first time, somebody was telling to the Bahujans that no, it is on the basis of our vote that somebody is ruling. And definitely it happened in Uttar Pradesh that kisi ka rule nahi chala, you know it very well. The second is vote se lenge PM CM, arakshan se lenge SPDM. I think that is another constitutional commitment, that voting right has been given by the constitution, and reservation has also been given by the constitution, and we will take it. The third is actually democracy. Jiski jitni sankhya bhari, uski utni bhagedari. So each according to its population. How actually, I wrote on a paper that how democratization of politics. On the one hand, if you see today, how monopolization of politics is taking place. Whether it is cabinet, it is monopolized by people of particular caste and community. If you take political party, if you take the functionaries, you go to BJP's website and see who are the office bearers. You will see the background, who are the people who monopolize party and politics both. But here, Kashiram was talking about democratization. So, jiski jitni sankhya bari, uski utni bhagedari. And that's what he distributed tickets with. And that's why Brahmins also got tickets, and therefore, I think that was a very democratic. Now, this was politics. Then what about the social transformation? What was the first big proposal which he gave for social transformation? And this is Ambedkar Gram Yojana. Now, he selected in the first regime, that was 4.5 months, he selected 12,000 villages which had 50% of population of scheduled caste. And he said that these villages will be declared as Ambedkar Gram with 7 basic amenities which will be given to them. The first thing will be link road, second will be a electric pole, third will be a school. And a school is very important. I think we should understand the politics of a school in the village, because in the school, votes are cast. Now, earlier schools used to happen in the upper caste bastis, and Dalits used to be afraid. They never used to go and cast their vote. But now the school is in their own vicinity, and they casted vote, and that changed the political. There was another, actually, Ambedkar Bhavan, Ambedkar Community Center in every village. Then there was drinking water, A&M, these 7 programs, link road, these all created democratization of the village, which used to be a den of ignorance, as Baba Saheb would say. Now they had link road of their own, actually. So they started changing. This was social transformation in the village. What about urban transformation, urban village? They had Kashiram Sahari Awas Yojana, in which Dalits were given, houses for 2,50,000, which of course was later on envisaged. Then 2 lakh acres of lands were distributed. This is data which has been given by Kashiram himself, actually, when he was writing foreword of Mayawati's book, that is Iron Lady Mayawati. In that, he has given this data and giving you. The 6 point, what he did, he put behind the bars 1,45,000 gundas in the first regime. And this is recorded, actually. And you know why Gunda. And that created a fervor. Then they created a formula, KVBL, Karambir Singh and Brijlal formula, against the communal frenzy which used to take place. And there, actually, they had one very important aspect: no police wala will be posted less than 200 kilometers from their house or from their residence. So you will be posted 200, and therefore there will not be any bhai bhatija vad in that, and there will not be anyone who can have bias towards other community. No gunda will be booked in jail. Our gunda will be sent to jail 200 kilometers from their headquarters, from their residence. So actually they curbed and then 10 number register is used, it has to be given to the persons. So 10 number, 10 number register hota hai, jisme sabse notorious, all the notorious people's names are there. That has to be presented to the headquarters. So in this way, communal frenzy was stopped during her period and also actually created. So Kashiram started with this, the important actually educational point which we miss during the regime, these 3 regimes of Kashiram had envisaged universities. And very interesting stories, 7 universities were created during the 3 regimes of Bahujan Samaj Party. This is the alternative proposal which he wanted. So what did Kashiram in his own style used to tell? The first actually university which we established was Baba Saheb Ambedkar's University in Agra. Then when I went to actually Kolhapur after establishing university, so people complained me in Kolhapur, sir, aapne to jo hai Baba Saheb ke naam banaya, Sahu ji ke naam se kuch nahi banaya, ye to bahut galat kiya aapne. So then Kashiram told that I came to Lucknow, and then I came to know that Sahuji Maharaj had come to Kanpur for one day in 1990. So I changed the name of Kanpur University to Sahuji University. So that was Sahuji University came up. Then he said, after creating this university, I went again to Pune. Now the Pune people started complaining कि आपने बाबा साहब के नाम पे किया और आपने जो है साहू जी के नाम पे किया, फूले के नाम पे तो आपने कुछ नहीं किया, ये तो बड़ी गलत बात है. तो फिर Kashiram came back again to Lucknow and he asked, where are the people from the Phule community more? So people said that sir, वो रुहेलखंड में बरेली के पास जो है वहां पर फूले समाज के बहुत सारे लोग होते हैं. तो Kashiram said that, so let us create a university there. So he changed the name of the Ruhelkhand University to Jyotiba Phule University. So what had come now in your area in Pune, the University Jyotiba Phule had come in UP much earlier. Now the interesting interesting part comes now. After creating this university, Baba Saheb went again to Maharashtra, and now people said, साहब आपने जो है बाबा साहब के नाम पे किया, आपने फूले के नाम पे किया, आपने साहू जी के नाम पे किया, लेकिन बुद्धा के नाम पे तो कुछ नहीं किया आपने. तो उन्होंने कहा अच्छा ठीक है भाई, अब ये बुद्धम शरणम गच्छामि के लिए भी कुछ करना पड़ेगा. Then he came and he created Gautam Buddha University, which was the biggest university with 560 acres of land. Now the history is Gautam Buddha Nagar banaya, Gautam Buddha Nagar banaya, Gautam Buddha Nagar mein Gautam Buddha Vishwavidyalaya banaya. Now people are not ready to accept that what Bahujan Samaj Party has been doing. Now this is what is empirical data. Later on, actually, within, if you see Gautam Buddha University, that is a very historical university, that on the four corners of that university, there are 4 intermediate colleges, which will feed them. One is Panchsheel College, which is PPP, air conditioned. Another is Savitribai Phule Women's College. Another is the Jyotiba Phule Boys College, and Baba Saheb Ambedkar. 4 colleges are there, which are supposed to feed Gautam Buddha University. And it has a memorandum with 45 nations, basically nation universities, other foreign universities. Now, of course, actually, that regime is not there, so that is not functioning. After this, actually, 5 universities, there was actually 2 other universities have come. One is Kashiram Urdu and Farsi University. It is not out of that, because Kashiram used to speak Urdu and Farsi both, write Urdu and Farsi, and therefore in his name. Later on, actually, he has changed. And last is Shakuntala University for Disabled University. So these universities were the fulcrum for social change, which were supposed to come. Now, having said this, what about the icons? How the icons have been revered? If you see Prerana Sthal, and especially Kashiram used to tell कि भाई जमुना के इधर आप देखेंगे तो आपको दूसरा वर्ल्ड दिखाई पड़ेगा, और जमुना से उधर देखेंगे तो आपको दूसरा वर्ल्ड दिखाई पड़ेगा. On the one hand, there is Shantipat, Shantivan, and there is actually graveyards of Nehru, Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi. But if you go that side, you will see how Baba Saheb Ambedkar, Phule, Sahu, all are actually there. So we see the iconography is basically a part of the politics, which actually argues that Dalits cannot be restricted to Chavarauti only. They cannot be restricted to only their village vicinity. They have come on the crossroads, and therefore a social change is ushering. Now, I think if you look into the evolutionary aspect of the movement, it follows Baba Saheb's path. It started from social movement. It comes to actually a journal mass organization, that is DS4, just like Baba Saheb Ambedkar had, and then we have political party. So actually, the evolutionary movement has to be understood in location and in tandem with the temporal reality and historical reality. The temporal reality is that Indian history is saying 4,000 years old. Some people say that no, 2,500 years old. Now, if you compare the Indian history, the Indian social structure, that is 2,500 years old, and how many months, how many years BSP has ruled is not even 25 years. Now, within this small historical span, what type of social change could usher? That is the question I think we should ask. I'll stop here.
Vivek Bhau, that was a very, very, very interesting presentation, and so many facts you digged out for the generations which has actually are having a general amnesia, what has happened and what has gone back just before their eyes. And the kind of things that you have put forward, they are so important for the people to know, particularly, the so-called intellectual community, academic community, the kind of role that, Manyavar has played. Bhau, there is a question for you. The question is, you enunciated these 10 strategies and formulas that Manyavar has given, like N into D into S is equal to change, triple M is equal to organization, and you have wonderfully explained it. Now, about looking at the today's context, when we are facing a situation, not only India, everywhere there is a rise of authoritarianism, there is a rise of populism, there is a rise of Nazism, there is a rise of nationalism, which is very narrow, ethnic based nationalism. So in this world today, including India, what kind of strategies that we need to build, or what kind of the future you will envision, what we need to do now, so that we realize these great dreams of our great forefathers?
One thing is for sure that there is anxiety among the individuals. There is a lot of anxiety. There is uncertainty. I think there is also trust deficit in the leaders. Basically, the leaders have exploited the people. People have been experimenting in Indian society. If you take UP, in UP, if you take one example, or even in Maharashtra, if you take, people have experimented. People have experimented with the SP, they have experimented with BSP, they have experimented coalition. Now they have BJP. In your area, they have experimented in so many actually political parties, and now you have another experiment which is going on. So that experimentation shows that people are in anxiety, and especially the middle class is having a lot of anxiety. And within anxiety, what happens? They accept the authoritarianism because they think that only a very hard-hitting, a very, say, outgoing personality will only help them. They will not trust anyone who is docile, who is very polite. They accept. So I think we have to look into collect the data for anxiety. I was doing a research in the morning, how many people serve us? And we have never thought. 15 people serve us. You can imagine. There is a Kamwali, there is a Bartanwali, there is a Dopi, there is a Mali, there is a car saaf karne wala, and there is a Nai, there is internet, there is so many people that serve us. But what happened to Kaam karne wali, what happened to Bartan manjne wali, what happened to Dobi? They are all gone. The people who are thriving is actually the Banya, the Dudwala, and they are all thriving. So I'm saying that the anxiety of the most depressed people, they have to be captured. And how we can definitely bridge the trust deficit. Unless until trust deficit is gone, I don't think that people will be able to relate us.
Now looking at you are a sociologist, and you have been touring the country all over the places, and now you talked about the temporal realities of that time. You sketched the historical perspective. You talked about the temporal realities of that time. Now, do you see that what kind of a changes that have undergone because of the passage of time? For example, when Manyavar started his movement, there was a class of employees which he could bank on, and he could this triple M formula that you talked about, man, mind, and money. So now today, when the world has shifted so much in terms of where can we find our strength, resources, and do you see there is a change in the situation, like the Ambedkar is, like for example, you see that Baba Saheb Ambedkar has become a poster boy of all the political parties. Everybody is trying to co-opt him. Everybody is trying to get him. And at the same time, we see that there was this April to Bandh, which brought lakhs of people, millions of people on the road. And there was this Bhima Koregaon agitation, bringing lots of people on the streets. So on the one hand, we are seeing that there is this resurgence of movements, and also very different paradigm, very different temporal reality than what Manyavar had, which Baba Saheb Ambedkar hadn't had, where that time there were not many employees. So, as a strategist, how do you, feel the pulse of time, and can you suggest some of the things that we as a movement need to understand and bring them back in the community?
Well, Mangesh, one thing is for sure, that whether it was Baba Saheb Ambedkar or whether it was Kanshiram, anyone, if you see that they always respected legacy. That is one thing which I find. Baba Saheb never lost the sight of Phule. He always tried to actually dedicate his books to these people. That means he had very much connectivity with the legacy. Kanshiram always took legitimacy from the legacy of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, Phule, Sahu, and he erected these icons. But you see the contemporary movements, the first thing which movement want, that they want to discredit the existing movement. They want to discredit, they want to criticize, they want to disobey. They think that, oh, no, they don't have. There are organizations which will not like to take that Kanshiram was the founder of BAMSEF. And I've never seen a photograph in their programs. Now, if this is the way to run a movement without thanking the people who have sacrificed their life, contingent and comfort, I don't think that we are organizing a very good society. A morally upright society will definitely recognize the contribution made by their leaders. It is not only after death you make them. Second thing is that you are also on the Facebook. I have never seen so many abuses hurled on the Dalit movement by the Dalit themselves. Nowhere, no political party, no community will abuse so much their own leaders, their own people, the way they will not say good things, but they will abuse them. They will discredit them. They will question them as if that, look, they cannot actually even organize two people, but they are ready to give. So I think, this society, there is something which is going wrong somewhere, that society is not ready to accept the good thing done. And then from there you carry on. Nobody is saying that you should not launch a movement, but you accept that, look, there are actually steps which have been already taken. It's not that you will be starting revolution. It is not that this is the last word. Revolution starts from you and it will finish from you. It is not going to help you anyway. And therefore recognition, those who have contributed, taking the name, I think that's where the whole cultural capital of the society is presented. And what Machiavelli would say, if your second line of leadership is not ready, don't discredit the earlier one. If you discredit the earlier one, then if the second line leadership is not coming, that means the first will also go away. So at least keep that leadership alive and then start actually invigorating. और जैसा कि बामसेफ में बताते हैं, पहली लाइन को मिटा करके बड़ी लाइन नहीं करते, उसके सामने बड़ी लाइन अपने आप खींचो, वो अपने आप खुद छोटी हो जाएगी. तो don't have a negative agenda. That's my take be. Or
Bhau, I was reading one very interesting book about how the history can act as a tool for decision making. And people have been looking at the political tools, but also, as you said, the history can be a very important guide to make a decision. So, you may be there. There was a history conference in Delhi,
Mhm.
and Manyavar was asked a question about,
I was
what
there.
you definitely there. S.K. Vishwas Saab has organized that, and it was a big gathering.
Uh,
Incidentally, I was there,
uh,
and and there Manyavar has made a very important statement. People were talking about history of 2000 years,
I know.
2500. He says, if you can understand the 150 years of history,
Yeah.
that's very important for you to even run the
Yeah.
entire movement. You don't have to go in the deep time.
No,
So
I remember actually. He
yeah,
said ki some people bring us and tell me, show me the bull. That this is actually the bull excavated from Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. I tell them कि अरे भाई ये बुल तो बड़ा मोटा है, आपकी तो मरी बछिया भी नहीं है आपके पास अभी. You don't have a calf. तो ऐसी हिस्ट्री का हम क्या ले? I think he was right that we have to go to the history where we get the strength. We should not venture into history so long that we lose our sight. I think we can go to the history where it energizes us, it enthuses us, it gives us lot of actually help, and then we can go on. But don't venture in the history when we lose our sight.
So my question was this: that the history that you have just put in front of the people who are listening to you today, and I think this the situation like the BSP is coming into power is not some kind of a distant phenomenon. It's like 2007, and now we are in 2019, 12 years, right? So my question is like, you think you as a strategic thinker, you think that we need to understand this very recent history in its and derive our strategy for the future, because these are like linked in time, as you said, that the temporal realities, they are not like two separate points in time. Something is evolving from something. And also about taking a cue from your presentation is, you talked about the pantheon that Manyavar created, and it goes on. There is a pyramid where there are like the caste icons, and then it like Suhel Dev, and then it goes up all the way up to the Buddha. And then there has been a recent study that the icons at the caste level, they have been Hinduized, and they are like removed from the pyramid, beautiful pyramid of pantheon that Manyavar has created. So there's two questions, Bhau.
No, one thing for sure, actually, that look, when we talk about that, can we really learn something from the history of Bahujan Samaj Party, BAMSEF, or whatever the BAMSEF are functioning now? Can we really take lessons? I really feel so, because you can organize people at from two vantage points. One, you can tell them about their exploitation, suppression, exclusion, discrimination. That is one way that you fill them with all actually disastrous thing, that you don't have anything with you. You are being exploited, excluded, your reservation is going. That is one that you can put the fear. But second thing is also, that there is a positive construction. In spite of these shortcomings, in spite of these hurdles, people have created niche for themselves. They have made space for themselves.
True.
People used to laugh at Kashiram that अरे एक दिन हमारी सरकार बनेगी, लेकिन सरकार जिस दिन बनी वो आ गए सबके सब फिर से लेने के लिए.
सही बात है.
I'm thinking that if we are really objective, then we should not lose the sight of the positive achievements of our movement.
Right.
So whatever positive achievement are there, I think they should be ours, because this is an independent creation. So that is one aspect, that we should start hailing our positive achievements. That is one. Second is that pantheon of leader. I'm saying that, I was thinking that Kashiram gave us 5. I've written a book, Agenda 2050. I've written a book on Agenda 2050, in which I argue that by 2050, we will establish 50 icons of Dalit community, of Bahujan community. Right. And I have named them. We have published a little bit, a small biography of them, 50. So once you start having 50 with you, जब किसी के मतलब देवता 386 हो सकते हैं, 86 करोड़ हो सकते हैं, तो हमारे 86 नहीं हो सकते क्या? So I think actually we have to, but those icons will be evaluated, developed, their biography will be written by us.
That's true.
Their movement will be written by us. We are not going to buy the history told to us by others now. That is what actually.
That's true. That's true.
जिसका मुद्दा उसकी लड़ाई, जिसकी लड़ाई उसकी अगुवाई,
बिल्कुल
है ना? ये we are not going to fight the battle in the stewardship of the other.
Right.
It
right.
will be our leadership.
Right.
That is what I'm trying to argue, that let us make that independent Dalit Bahujan movement led by us. हमें बाहर के white वाले जब आते हैं, जैसे हमारे white scholars आए और उन्होंने लिखा किताबें, चाहे ज़ीलियट हो, चाहे वो डेल अम्वेट हो, बड़े खुश होते हैं हम लोग, लेकिन हमारा अपना कौन है?
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
अरे उनको हमने सिखाया बाबा साहब कैसे चलते थे, कैसे खाते थे, कैसे पीते थे, कौन सा सूट पहनते थे. Now they are telling us that this is the knowledge.
Right.
We have given them data, they are giving us the knowledge.
Yes.
Now where are we? I think that's where the question is, that if we cannot establish our own intellectuals, how we will fight the battle? किराए के अगर हम पहलवानों से लड़ाई लड़ेंगे तो फिर हमारी लड़ाई नहीं रहेगी वो.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. That is a very good point that Bhau you have made, and now this is a very straight question to you, because you have been in academia for a very long time, and you have seen the students emerging from academic institutes. You have also seen the movement growing in front of your eyes. You have also seen what is sometimes the electoral politics go up and down in all, in different ways. And now, as you know, this because of the efforts of Bamse, Manyavar, we can definitely say that there is a kind of huge explosion in terms of the movement, and also there is a confusion. There is a confusion. There is an explosion. These two processes are happening at the same time. So, Bhau, when we talk about this leadership, and when we talk about the diversity, like in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and all the way up to Jammu Kashmir, to Bengal, and to Gujarat and Maharashtra, whatnot, such a diversified country we have, which is more diverse than Europe, which is more sort of, it's like a continent itself. So, how do you see this? Number one question is, how do you see the future of the leadership in the community?
I think you asked a very pertinent question of confusion. And I think that is very, very, very important in this era of media explosion, in the era of social media, how people create confusion, and how the real leaders are subsided, they are sidelined, and how the hypocrites, they come up and they create actually. Now, I think it was during Baba Saheb's time. We know the story of Karjalorkar and others actually, we don't have to name them. We also have actually in the time of Kashiram, that how Jagjivan Ram and how actually the Paswan and all the others were actually. Now even today we see that how certain people are being projected, True. And one thing is for sure actually, people are not, the political parties, the ideologies are not, they are not able to fight Dalit community and Dalit leaders directly. They are not able to fight. If you take examples of political parties, or if you take example of ideologies, what they do, they co-opt Dalits in their political party and ideology.
Right.
And through them, they try to discredit the independent Dalit movement.
Right.
And the problem is that we are not able to counter. I will not give you the name, but I have heard a tape, actually a lecture by a person from Maharashtra who says that Ambedkarism is nothing. Baba Saheb could not understand Marx. It is very superficial reading.
Right.
He also says that Ambedkar could not formulate reservation policy properly. And Baba Saheb Ambedkar actually followed a pragmatic policy, and he was experimenting, and therefore Baba Saheb Ambedkar life is failure. This is the line he has said, and he has scot free. So I am just arguing that these are the people who discredit the Dalit movement.
Right.
Now we have to counter them outrightly and then actually create our own edifice. Otherwise, we will not be able to do that. The second part of the question I'm forgetting actually what was that.
About the leadership.
Yeah.
Like the huge diversity and the leadership.
I think actually now the problem is with the Dalit mass or the Bahujan mass. Now the Bahujan mass is very educated now. Educated in the sense, not the book literacy, but they are very clever. Now they have seen Baba Sahib Ambedkar as the stalwart. For example, if you take Maharashtra, people don't accept any Tom, Dick and Harry as their leader. Why? Because they have seen such a towering personality. They have seen Kashiram also, who was a very powerful leader as far as movement is concerned. So the problem is that if the leader, any Tom, Dick and Harry will come and say that, look, I'm your leader, people are not going to accept. It's only with the education, with the vision, with the performance that leaders will be accepted.
Right.
You cannot, dodge them farcically with your words and with your tom-tomming and all that actually. That's why you see that there is a leaderless movement on 2nd of April.
Yeah.
Why? Because people don't trust. There is a distrust. There is mistrust. There is deficit of the trust.
Right. Bob, this is the last question. We are coming to the end of our discussion, but I think this is a very important question. There is always a felt need of an intellectual class, and now as you said that there you have also seen a lot of young scholars which are coming up from academia. I have seen that the young people are writing very well. They are articulating very well. So as an academician plus a man who spent so much time in the movement, what will be your sort of I won't say advice, but as a brotherly sort of a direction to them as to how should they, in what direction they should go, what kind of the areas that they pick up for the research, how they can maintain that intellectual honesty, that openness to share their ideas with others, also to receive criticism, also give very critical feedback with love and care. What kind of a
very good. I think I'm very happy actually that you asked me this question, because I don't know whether I'm at that level to tell the people, but I have felt 2-3 things which I will definitely like to share. One thing is for sure, that whosoever is working in their own disciplinary boundary, please question your disciplines. If you are a historian, question history, how the history is written, write books on history. If you are a political scientist, question the political science theories. If you are a sociologist, question sociology, what Indian sociology has done, what political science has done, what are the theories. That is one. What happens that people who are in political science, they come and do Dalit studies. They'll start actually only Dalit studies. Those who are geographers, those who are economists, they will say that they are all doing Dalit studies. That is not going to help. Second thing is that, as you asked very rightly, academic honesty. Academic honesty will only come when you start referring your own people who have written in the area. Now there is so much of plagiarism. I see myself that in front of me only my students start telling me something which they had taken from my book, but they will never refer. So I think you create a pool of researchers, pool of intellectuals if you refer them. If you do not refer them, even as I refer my students, I took name of Arvind. Why? Because I took it from there, and therefore then and then only a legacy will be there. So I think we have to create a legacy in which we will also produce our intellectuals doing the work in the same area. Right. Always only writing on Dalits will not create a knowledge pool. You have to write in your own disciplines, taking references of the others, so that there are things that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What had happened in a Dalit society, there were few intellectuals. We were actually at the highest level, but they never created a second line. They never gave them a space. They never groomed them. Unless and until you groom them, a second line will not come. So you have to groom the intellectuals. You have to give them space. You write books with them. You write articles with them. Then only it will be established. I think rest, I think we have very good mind. People are writing, but they are in their own world. They maybe arrogance is there, maybe they are shy, but I will not say that there is a pool which can definitely develop further.
I think about the very important discussion we had today, and I think those who are listening to you today, they certainly has benefited from your insights and your dedication to our movement, our people. We can go on and on learning from you, because this is such an important topic. But time is a constraint. We would like to invite you again and again, and we should
definitely. I was suggesting, Mangesh, I think when you are talking about intellectual, I think the reductionism of Baba Saheb Ambedkar only to caste, only caste studies.
Yeah.
That has also, caste, and now some people have started talking about constitution. But his larger ideas, actually his epistemology, the source and foundation of knowledge. I think we have to make academics out of Baba Saheb Ambedkar. We will like to talk on that someday. Actually, I think I have told. Actually, I'm writing. Once is that I think academics is very, very important. That how many references Baba Saheb gave when he was writing. It is not oral tradition that whatever he spoke became knowledge. It is not that. He wrote referential knowledge. He presented in seminars. He presented in, he wrote in journals. He produced out of PhD. He referred 6 types of encyclopedia. He referred commission's report. So these referential articles become knowledge. They pass through the number of eyes. It is not that oral traditions will create knowledge. That is not going to help.
Very true.
So we have to make academics of Baba Saheb Ambedkar also.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very high time that we start articulating the vision that you just enunciated. I think we would like to invite you to discuss on that as to I think this is very important, and a lot of our young scholars will benefit for that. On that, we would definitely like to invite you for that. Before we end, do you have any concluding remarks for today?
No, thank you so much. Actually, first of all, Mangesh, you had a very patient hearing, and it was very daring of you that you could think that we can talk about BSP and BAMSERT, because it is taboo. People don't even touch about that actually, and we can make an academics out of this politics. That was, I think, a very challenging job that you did, and I really congratulate you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Actually, we are very delighted to have you, Bhau, and always we learn from you. I think you talked about legacy, and legacy is very important in any movement to go further, whether it's a black movement or whether it's a Buddhist movement of the history. There has been the series of people who have been contributing to the movement, and they came in different eras. Same with every movement. If the movement has to survive, I think one of the important takeaway from your talk today is that there has to be some respect, or I think there has to be some deep respect, not some, very deep respect for the legacy out of which we are all born. If they were not there, we wouldn't be there. And if we don't do something, our future generations won't be there. So I think the way you've spoken about legacy today, I think it's a very different perspective that I think a lot of people have got. And Bhau, thank you so much. Jai Bhim. And we will see you very soon. And thank you for joining in today, Bhau.
Thank you so much, Mangesh, and keep your health good and keep on doing the same work. Thank you so much.